Like Nevada's Paul Laxalt, Dana was with Ronald Reagan from the very beginning. Dana, in fact, is a young speechwriter. One of my favorite stories about Dana is that he went and camped out on Ronald Reagan's backyard. Slept on his backyard back before Reagan was elected to anything. Came and just said, "Mr. Reagan, I want to work for you." And they were sending him away. "What are you doing? Who is this guy?" And Reagan heard and said, "Well, hold on. If he slept in my backyard, let me at least talk to him." And he became one of Ronald Reagan's key speechwriters, one of his key trusted advisors. Now, for many years, he's represented the state of California in Congress, and he is a man who values liberty and the Constitution more than going along to get along in Washington. There is a reason Dana and I both need food tasters in the members' dining room. And I will say one of the striking things, if you look at the people, at the courageous conservatives that have come together behind our campaign, whether it's Dana, whether it's Adam, whether it's Glenn, the consistent pattern is these are men and women that love this country, that are committed to the Constitution, and are willing to speak the truth no matter what the price. The truth has power. And speaking the truth with a smile drives Washington crazy. Thank you, sir. Let me tell you, I could not be more encouraged, more optimistic than I am right now. Every one of us is here today because our country's in crisis. Because we're bankrupting our kids and grandkids. Because our constitutional rights are under assault each and every day. And because America has receded from leadership in the world, and it has made the world a much more dangerous place. And yet, in spite of all of that, I am here with a word of hope and encouragement. All across this country, people are waking up. Sometimes things have to get really bad to startle people out of their slumber. And I want to tell you, there is a spirit of awakening that is sweeping this country. So I want to ask everyone here to look forward. Look forward to January 2017. If I am elected president, let me tell you what I intend to do on the first day in office. The first thing I intend to do is rescind every single illegal and unconstitutional executive action taken by this president. The second thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the U.S. Department of Justice to open an investigation into Planned Parenthood and to prosecute any and all criminal convictions. The third thing I intend to do on the first day in office is instruct the Department of Justice and the IRS and every other federal agency that the persecution of religious liberty ends today. That means that every serviceman and woman has the right to seek out and worship God Almighty with all of their hearts, minds, and souls, and their superior officer has nothing to say about it. The fourth thing I intend to do is rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal. And the fifth thing I intend to do on the first day in office is begin the process of moving the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, the once and eternal capital of Israel. Now that's day one. In the days that follow, I will nominate a strong, principled constitutionalist to replace Justice Antonin Scalia on the U.S. Supreme Court. You know, just 2 days ago, I had the privilege of attending Justice Scalia's funeral. Justice Scalia was a lion of the law. He was someone who I knew personally for 20 years. He was brilliant. He was passionate. He was a voluble Italian. His wife, Maureen, is Irish. And let me tell you, being myself Cuban, Irish, and Italian, that is a dangerous combination. But Justice Scalia loved the Constitution and spent 3 decades fighting to defend the Constitution on the Supreme Court each and every day. As Ronald Reagan was to the presidency, so too was Justice Scalia to the U.S. Supreme Court. And his passing underscores the stakes of this election. It is not one branch of government, but 2 that hang in the balance. We are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court mandating unlimited abortion on demand all across this country with no restrictions whatsoever. We are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court reading the Second Amendment out of the Bill of Rights. Let me tell you, Justice Scalia's most significant majority opinion was Heller versus District of Columbia. Now, I know that case very, very well because I represented 31 states in Heller defending the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, and we won 5-4. We're one justice away from the court concluding that no individual here has any individual right to keep and bear arms whatsoever. You know, in Texas, before I was in the Senate, I was the Solicitor General of Texas, the chief lawyer for the state in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. We defended the 10 Commandments monument on the state capitol grounds. We went to the Supreme Court and we won 5-4. We are one liberal justice away from the Supreme Court ordering 10 Commandments monuments torn down all over this country. And I'll tell you the most significant case I argued as Solicitor General was a case called Medellin versus Texas. Medellin involved a tragic crime in my hometown of Houston where 2 teenage girls were horribly assaulted and murdered by a gang. One of those gang members, Jose Ernesto Medellin, was an illegal immigrant who confessed to the crime in grisly details, was convicted of that horrible murder. But the case took a very strange turn because the World Court, the judicial arm of the United Nations, issued an order to the United States to reopen the convictions of 51 murderers in this country. Never before has any foreign court tried to bind the U.S. justice system. Texas stood up and we fought the World Court of the United Nations. I argued this case twice in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. On the other side was the World Court, was the United Nations, was 90 foreign nations, and was the President of the United States. And I'm sorry to tell you, it wasn't Barack Obama. It was George W. Bush. Now, my wife Heidi and I, we met back in 2000 working on the Bush campaign. We were actually one of 8 marriages came out of that campaign. So, a lousy joke that I've told many, many times. Whatever anyone else says about George W. Bush, in our house, he will always be a uniter and not a divider. But in this instance, President Bush received some very, very poor advice. And he signed a 2-paragraph order that attempted to order the state courts to obey the World Court. Now, I'll tell you, it was an interesting conversation I had with my boss at the time, the Attorney General, Greg Abbott, now the Governor of Texas. It was an unusual thing for Texas to be opposing the President of the United States before the U.S. Supreme Court, particularly when that president was a Texan, was a Republican, was our former governor, and was a friend. And yet I'm proud to tell you that twice I went before the U.S. Supreme Court and argued, number one, neither the World Court nor the United Nations have any jurisdiction whatsoever in the United States of America. And number two, no president, Democrat or Republican, has the constitutional authority to give away U.S. sovereignty. And we won 6-3. And in the final iteration of the case, it too dropped down to 5-4. We're one justice away from the Supreme Court concluding that the United Nations and the World Court can bind our justice system. We are one justice away from the Supreme Court subjecting us to international law and taking away sovereignty which vests in one place and one place only, we the people. And I think Justice Scalia's passing has elevated the assessment that the men and women of Nevada are making. As you look at the very fine individual standing on that debate stage, the question to ask that I believe the people of Nevada are asking is, who do I know? Beyond a shadow of a doubt, who do I know will nominate strong conservative justices that will protect my rights? And I give you my word that every justice I appoint to the Supreme Court will be a principled constitutionalist who will ferociously defend the Bill of Rights for your children and my children. In the days that follow, I will go to Congress and we will repeal every word of Obamacare. We'll pass common sense health care reform that makes health insurance personal and portable and affordable and keeps government from getting in between us and our doctors. I will instruct the U.S. Department of Education that Common Core ends today. and we will finally secure the borders and end sanctuary cities. Let me talk to all the men and women here in Nevada that are facing struggling economic situations, that are facing a lack of jobs, that are seeing their hours forcibly reduced to part-time, that are seeing their wages stagnating rather than going up. Illegal immigration is a powerful anchor pulling down wages of working Americans, taking away jobs. And I will tell you, of the individuals on that stage, I am the only person who led the fight against amnesty and will secure the borders and protect the jobs of the American people. In the days that follow, we will rebuild our military. And we will honor the solemn commitments made to every soldier and sailor and airman and Marine. That includes fundamentally reforming the VA so that every veteran has the right to choose his or her doctor. That includes protecting the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms of every serviceman and woman. And one of the most shameful aspects of the last 7 years was the President over and over again sending our fighting men and women into combat with rules of engagement that tie their arms behind their back and make it impossible for them to win. Mark my words, on January 2017, that will end. America has always been reluctant to engage in military conflict. We are slow to anger. But if and when military force is needed, we should use overwhelming force, kill the enemy, and then get the heck out. In the days that follow, we will take on the EPA and the BLM and the CFPB and the alphabet soup of federal agencies that have descended like locusts on farmers and ranchers and small businesses, killing jobs all over this country.
Hands off our public land! Don't support Bundy! Hands off our public land!
Thank you, sir, for being here.
Leave our public lands with the people.
Thank you very much, sir, for being here. Thank you for expressing your views. One of the great things of the First Amendment is it even allows Bernie Sanders supporters to come to our events. And let me say, sir, you have a First Amendment right to express your views.
Let's go. Come on, folks.
But at the same time,
stand up, please.
85% of the state of Nevada is owned by the federal government. That will end if I am president of the United States. There is no reason on earth the federal government should be the largest landlord in the United States of America.
Protects public lands. Protects public lands.
You guys have zero class.
In Texas, the federal government owns 2%.
I believe me. I know. Thank you.
Can we see if any media calling this out real quick?
hang out here for a second? We could,